I'm just wondering if going into this season, get this off season, you feel any better than you did going into last year's off season?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have faith. I mean, me being the person that I am, I try to look things positively no matter what. And but I did more or less know the circumstances of last year's off season with the more or less with the salary cap and the position that our team was in. But yeah, saying that, this offseason, definitely I have more faith. I have faith in, there's new regime here with Keith Pelly, and from the things that I've heard from him and the vision that I'm hearing, I have a really good feeling. And what I'll say is this offseason, as they know, and everybody knows, is very, very important. I mean, it has been for the last 4 years. But if we really do, if this really is a rebuild, and if we want to turn this club around, this offseason is one of the most important in starting that.
Hi, John Molinaro. Does this club, is it lacking from a clear identity? Because it's something that Keith kind of hit on, and John as well. And just want to get your view on what the concept of identity even means for you. Does it mean playing style, or are there other factors? How would you define a club's identity?
Yeah, identity, I think, there's different ways to look at identity. It depends on the perception of the person asking that or speaking about that. When you ask me about identity of a club, you think of TFC's identity from 2015-ish, 2016 to 2020. It was clear in the way we played, in our mentality. We are a winning club. That was our identity, a winning club. And we found a way to win and things like that. Then there's the identity on the field. And that, I know that Jason had alluded to it, the identity of this club on the field has changed. It has changed with the managers that we've had. And so have we been lacking our identity? I think from top to bottom, it hasn't been aligned. And so for that, and when I mean top, I mean not only on the pitch, I mean off the pitch as well. In all aspects of how this club is run, I think it just wasn't aligned. What I saw from before, a big learning I think I took in, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, I feel like the results on the pitch became a secondary priority. And I think because of the success that we had before then, leading into then, that I think maybe we thought as a club that would just continue on its own, and we stopped working on that. And it feels like it became second priority, in my opinion. And I think now, from what I hear, the things that I'm hearing, it's back to, the results on the field, and doing things that's going to affect our results on the field is our number one priority. For example, I hear somebody asks Keith Pelly about the season ticket for next season. He doesn't know. He can't give you an answer. For me, that shows a person that's thinking more of results on the pitch, and not really, those things are secondary, and that's not at the top of his mind. So for me, that's a positive.
Hey, John. John Herdman, you played under him with the national team for 4 or 5 years. How would you compare that, John, to the one that came here? And did he change as a coach through the year?
I would say his idea of football and how he goes about trainings and things like that is the same. He has a certain philosophy, I think, of football, and so that hasn't changed. As a coach, I think, yeah, he evolved. He evolved as the year went, and you have to. National team football is much different to club football, and I think he learned that pretty quickly, and he learned that as the year went on, and so yeah, I think John evolved as the year went on, and I know he expects a lot from himself, so he's not going to be satisfied with how the season went, and nobody here should be satisfied with how the season went. But I think as a first year in club, this was the way the year went is going to be good for him in the long run.
James Grossi. John, way back at the start of the year, we talked to you about the non-negotiables the team was going to invest in this year. I won't ask you again what those were, but did those serve you well this year, or were there times where that wobbled, and how do you adjust that going forward?
Yeah, I think in the beginning of the year, things were going well, and yeah, those non-negotiables were held. That standard was held, and things were going good, and I would say for the most part they were held for sure. It did wobble. I won't lie to you. It did wobble. It's normal when things get harder in the season, and it's nothing that I think we didn't expect, or at least those with experience did not expect. It's just part of an MLS season. Even the championship teams go through wobbles in the season. What I would say is, those championship teams don't let those wobbles affect them in a negative way for too long. And we're still this is a fairly new team, and our first year with these non-negotiables and everything. So it wobbled at some point. I would say mid-season, more so than anything. But I think the positive is that the locker room and the state of the locker room was much better than last year as far as non-negotiables go, and this year is something that we can build on going forward.
John, you agreed to rework your contract so that TFC could bring Richie back. A really unselfish move on your part, and it was something and you did it quietly, and it was something that a lot of people wouldn't have even known about until Neil and I asked Jason about it last month. As I said, a really unselfish move on your part. What prompted you to do that? Why did you feel compelled that you had to sort of give back a little to bring in such an important piece in Richie? Because you didn't have to do it.
I told Dio, I felt in the offseason, I knew the circumstances of the salary cap and everything, and I felt that the team needed help to clear some space, and we needed to get some players in. And Richie at that point was looking for a team. He was contracted to Nottingham, but with the idea that he was trying to get a move. And so I spoke to him first if he would even be interested in coming to Toronto. And then when he said yes, I brought the idea to Jason, and he asked me if I was sure about it. He didn't jump on it on that idea. He asked if I was sure about it, and I said yes. And I just felt that Richie, aside from what he gives on the pitch, which is a lot, this is a national team player that, as you saw a couple of days ago, starts for the national team in really important games. As an important part of the national team, especially going forward into the World Cup. But off the field, I felt was going to be his big presence in that locker room after the season we had. It was very, very important. And so I felt that somehow we needed to get him here, and it seemed like that was the only way.
For the first time in, I think, a decade, the team had a new captain, after Michael's retirement. I just wanted to ask a two-part question. What were some of the challenges of being a captain this year for you? What was the experience like? And two, you played under some pretty iconic captains, whether it was Atiba or Michael. Did you sort of glean anything from them from your time playing under them that helped informed how you wanted to sort of serve as captain yourself?
Yeah, I mean, before even the year started, I began to look back on my time under Michael and under Atiba and these guys and their time as captains, Julian de Guzman at the beginning of my career with Canada. So I took time to analyze some of the things that worked for them and what were important factors to them being such good captains. And so, yeah, I definitely took that into this season, that kind of knowledge. But I knew as well that, you know, Michael Bradley's shoes are really big to fill. But I don't think I'm trying to fill those shoes. I'm trying to, you know, you can't, being a captain, you have to be yourself. And so I knew I had to be the captain the way I knew how to be. I had to put my own imprint on them, learning the things, maybe taking some things from those past guys. So yeah, it was. I think it was challenging at times. At times it was going great, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot in my first year as a captain, and I think I really grew into the role as the year went on. And I think I underestimated myself a little bit in the beginning of the year. But as I started to realize a few things, and of course, you can't be a good captain without the help of leaders around you and people around you. So I had people helping me as well that I'm really fortunate to have. But I think for me, yeah, I evolved as the year went on, and I became very confident as a captain and myself as that. And I'm really looking forward to what I can do next year in this role.
John, margins are thin in this league. How far off do you think this side is from being able to compete, to contend?
To contend for MLS Cup or to be in the playoffs? To be in the playoffs, we're 3 points from being in the playoffs. We're 3 points far away. Not too far for being a playoff team. Saying that, now being a contender, we have work to do for sure. And that's obvious. Playoffs was, I think, this year a very analyzing the season and how everything went. I think it was a very realistic goal, and a goal that I think we should have got. And you know, unfortunately, it didn't happen. And but yeah, as far as being a playoff team, not too far. You know, we got close with the Canadian Championship. And unfortunately, playing better than the other team is not good enough in finals. You have to get the job done. And so, yeah, that's the next step going forward. And obviously, and yeah, next season it has to be, the mentality has to be to make the playoffs. And I said this year, making the playoffs, getting yourself in the playoffs, anything can happen. And if you go into the playoffs on a hot streak, anything can really happen. Then you become a contender. So yeah, it's next year, of course, which should always be the objective at TFC, is to make the playoffs and to win the Canadian Championship.